What is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is my spoiler review for the new film Halloween 2018. If you have not seen this movie, please go to the description box right below. There's a video. Click on that. That is my spoiler-free review of this movie. I really don't want to spoil this movie for you guys, but if you like spoilers and you haven't seen it, well, then you've been warned. So, I don't want to go over a whole plot synopsis again. I just kind of want to jump into the things I liked about this movie and the things that didn't sit well with me or didn't work for me in this movie. And as I kind of want to start off with this. As some of you guys may know who follow me, John Carpenter's Halloween is my all-time favorite horror film. It's been like that for years. I remember watching it when I was like 7, 8 years old. And the mystique about Michael Myers as a character was always intriguing to me, and he was one of the first characters in a movie to really freak me out and give me nightmares, and I loved it, and I was so invested and so interested in who he was as a character, and I've just been in love with Halloween the original for so long. With that being said, I like some of the sequels. I really like this film, but it's not my favorite sequel. And I will probably do a Halloween ranking at some point in time this year to kind of give you a full visualization of kind of where I sit when it comes to Halloween films and their rankings. Now, with that out of the way, I want to get into the things that I like about this movie. Number one thing I like about this movie the most, more than anything else, is Michael Myers. A good Halloween movie to me has got to make it a vital importance that Michael Myers stays consistent to who he was and how we knew him as in John Carpenter's Halloween. There are things I love so much about this movie because of Michael Myers' character. Now, in this movie, Michael Myers, the thing I love about The Shape is that he really embodies The Shape. You still don't know a lot about him. He still is evil, and he embodies everything that is evil, and I love that. And I love that he goes through in this movie, and he shows a more spiritual side to his character and to his element than what we have seen in other sequels, and that to me was so refreshing. It was so nice to see that, because I hadn't really seen this type of Michael Myers since the original Halloween, because he embodies something so different. He is a man, but yet there's this spiritual side, this spiritual awakening element that is Michael Myers, and that is the one thing I love so much about the original film is Michael Myers himself, and he really is genuinely creepy once again in this film, and I loved it, and I love that they made Michael Myers scary again. And they did it in such a way that paid homage to the original film. And we got to see him kind of 40 years after, when he's kind of been inside, locked up, and he has all these pent up aggressive feelings that, obviously turn out the worst for the residents of Haddonfield. And I love that. I love that we got to see how he was going to be 40 years after the events of the first Halloween. And because of that, this movie feels so real. Michael Myers feels very real because of that element alone. And I just absolutely love that about this film, how they captured Michael Myers. Because to me, that really, they needed to capture Michael Myers. If they didn't capture Michael Myers within the first, half hour of the film, I probably would have lost interest really early on. But because he was so visceral, because he was so vicious and just violent and terrifying again, it kept me engaged in this film throughout the entire movie. And it made my enjoyment that much higher each and every time I saw him on screen. And it was perfect. Now, staying on that same track of characters, another character I really liked in this film, Laurie Strode, of course. Jamie Lee Curtis came back. And when I found out about it, I was really excited, because I feel like Halloween at its core, there's always been two characters to me that have been very interesting, and that is Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and then Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris. I've always liked those two characters. I kind of like what they've done with those two characters. And especially Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4, but I'm not going to get into that. Maybe that'll be its own review someday. But what they did with Laurie Strode's character, taking her from, 1978 Laurie Strode being this sweet, innocent, very much different from her friends type of girl, to this awesome, freaking amazing, like, trained operative woman. And it's so cool how they took that her experience from the first film led to so much trauma that she has been preparing this entire time, and I love that. And one of the things I love so much is when she is there shooting all the guns and she has a whole stockload of guns, you just see the intent in her eyes that she really knows he's going to be coming back, and when he comes back, she's going to be ready for him. And I love that. I think Jamie Lee Curtis was probably the heart and soul of this film. Michael Myers was the grit of this film, but Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode was the heart and soul of this film. And I felt like seeing her story continue from where we last saw her, it's very much different, but at the same time it kind of feels familiar, where we understand that somebody who's going through that much trauma and has had that type of experience would end up becoming this warrior, and that's really what Jamie Lee Curtis brought to this character, and I loved it so much, and it was so fascinating. And every time that they steered away from either Michael Myers or Laurie Strode, this movie, to me, I kind of lost interest in this movie, and it became more of a nuisance rather than something that was an addition, and I didn't like that. It's kind of like a subtraction by addition, if that makes sense. And to me, it lost interest when they turned away from these two characters that I love so much. And kind of going off of the same boat on characters, another character I really liked that worked for me, and I have seen other people, they don't agree with this, and that's fine. All film is subjective, but I really liked Karen in this film. I liked Judy Greer's character a lot, actually. I felt she was robotic at times, but I think the third act, when she's holding up the gun and she's acting like she's panicking, like, oh, I can't do it, Mom, I'm not strong enough. And Michael Myers comes into frame and she goes, gotcha, boom. And that was so awesome. Probably one of the most iconic moments in the film for me. I absolutely loved that scene. I was like, oh, like, that is so awesome. And I haven't seen something like that in a film like this ever. And to me, that was just so cool. And it was so different. And it really brought a different layer to Judy Greer's character in this film that we hadn't seen before. Because before, what we'd seen from her is this daughter who has been so pissed off at her mom, growing up. Her mom, didn't raise her the right way. She basically just trained her to be a warrior for when Michael Myers returns someday. And she has all these harboring negative feelings towards her mom, and feelings of her mom as a psychopath. And then we also saw her side of her trying to kind of be like a mother and a wife, which we didn't really get to see much of the wife side, because obviously her husband dies, and Ray dies, which I saw that coming a mile away. But to me, I felt like these three characters worked so well. Obviously, Michael Myers has to work really well, and Laurie Strode worked really well, and Karen, I thought, was another great addition to this cast, and I would really like to see where that goes. I feel like when they make a sequel to this film, because it's made a lot of money, and I'm for sure they probably already are in talks right now about what the sequel's going to entail. I don't know if we're going to see Karen in this next film, but it would be kind of nice to see a little hindrance of who she has become from this experience, because I feel like her relationship with Laurie after the events that happened are going to change drastically, because now she knows that her mom was really all this time right, and she wasn't a loony. And that, to me, it just added another layer onto her character. And I also really liked the granddaughter. I liked Andy Matichak. I thought her performance was really well as Allison, and I felt like Allison is a great addition. And Allison kind of has that. She has that similarity of Laurie Strode from the original film, and this kind of new mix of kind of being independent, kind of being on her own and making her own choices. And I really like that. I like that blend. I think she's going to fit perfectly if they hand this franchise to her, for her to be kind of the new lead character, I guess you could say. I would be okay with that. I felt like she did a really good job. She pieced this movie together very well, based on story, based on character development. And I really like that interesting dynamic between her and her grandma, Laurie Strode. I really love that, and I kind of want to see more of that. So hopefully we get to see her in more sequels, because I'm sure, like I said, I know they're going to make a sequel to this film, and if the next one does great and everybody's loving it like they do this one, well, then we can expect many more films, I guess. So those are the characters that I want to talk about that I like. I'm not going to go into characters I don't like right this minute. I want to stay on the positives. So a couple other things that really worked for me. Another thing that I really loved about this film was I loved the score. The score in this film is incredible. This movie's score gives that hindrance back to the original film, but it has new flavor, and I like that. It was so satisfying to sit in the theater and just listen to beautiful music. This movie would sound so good, and I wish that they had this as a special feature on the Blu-ray, because I'm definitely gonna get the Blu-ray. I know they won't have this as a special feature, but it'd be amazing if you could watch this movie without the audio. Just listen to the soundtrack. It would take a lot of stuff out of consideration. I know that. A lot of things would be different. But it would just be so cool to just listen to the soundtrack, because it's beautiful. And it's such a master class of old and new, and it blends that really well together, where this movie feels, when there's a lot of tension in this film, and when there's the suspenseful moments, the tempo has that classic Carpenter feel from the original film, but it also has some of his other films kind of blended in, and that was really nice. It worked really well. And I think probably one of my favorite scenes in this film is the one take shot. And I know a lot of people have been talking about this, and I love this shot because as you're seeing Michael, that first person point of view, kind of, well, not really, a first person point of view, like behind in retrospect of where Michael Myers is, you get that classic Carpenter score, and it's so awesome. So awesome. And especially hearing that in a theater, you got to watch this movie. Like, you should go and watch this movie at least a couple times if you really want to in the theater, just to listen to that score, like in surround sound in the theater. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I just absolutely love that about the film. Another thing I really liked about this film, I really liked the kills. I like the way that they showed the aftermath of some of the kills, as opposed to showing what actually happened with the kills. I would love to have seen them kind of do a callback to the original, where they don't show too much about the kill, but it lets you kind of imagine it in your mind, and which makes it even more creepier, and that's what I love about the original. But I understand why they don't do it. I understand that for this generation it wouldn't work. Somebody like me, I'd love it, but I feel like a lot of people would feel dissatisfied, especially with a slasher film, because slasher films are known for their kills. That's one thing. They're known for the violence. They're known for like the creative ways of killing, and so but I did like that element. I liked what David Gordon Green was able to show, and the way that he showed it. I felt like it added on to the dramatic effect of this film, and the aspect of who Michael Myers is, because he really is a force to be reckoned with. He's a force. He's not just a man. He's not just a spiritual evil being. He's really a force, and that's one thing that I loved, because he showed really that he is emotionless, and he embodies that nothing, because he just goes about in certain ways of killing people and doing these heinous things, which I absolutely just loved, and it floored me. Some of the scenes in this film, especially the bathroom scene, that scene, wow, holy cow. That scene is still in my mind as we speak right now, just being replayed over and over again. Just the way that they were able to show everything that happened and how violent in nature it was, but at the same time, like how realistic it was, gives me chills. That scene definitely made me tense in the theater. I was just grabbing onto my chair so hard, and wow, I will never forget that scene and watching that for the first time in the theater. It's such a crazy scene. I love it. So that to me has all worked really well in this film, is having that good mix of violence, but also not showing too much, still having that a little bit of level of mystery and intrigue and imagination, which to me, I really like that. And I'm happy that they still harken back to the original film. Speaking of harkening back to the original film, the last thing that I really liked about this film, there's some other things I liked, but I don't want to go on an hour-long tangent. The last thing I really liked was those nods to the original film, to some of the sequels. And one of the things that I really loved, probably one of my favorite nods, was you have Allison in the classroom. And by the way, PJ Souls, who played Linda in the original film, she voiced the teacher. How cool is that? Allison is sitting in the classroom. She looks out the window. Classic scene from the original where Laurie was looking out the window and it's Michael Myers watching her from outside. But this time, instead of Michael Myers watching her from outside, it is Laurie watching her granddaughter from outside. I loved that nod. I had the biggest smile from ear to ear when that scene happened. I absolutely loved it. I knew what was going to happen too. I thought it was going to be Michael though. For some reason, I thought it was going to be Michael. I don't know why. I was kind of just expecting it, but I loved that it was Laurie in that scene specifically. It worked so well. That was probably my favorite nod of the film. But there's other nods too that I really liked. Whether it be Laurie coming out of the shadow at the end after Judy Greer shoots Michael and she says Happy Halloween. I loved the way that was shot. I love that it was her face coming out. I wish it was a little slower, like the way that they did in the original. It was a little too fast for me, but I still like that nod, nonetheless. To me, it worked really well. I also loved another one of my favorites, and this was great. This one is probably tied up there with the classroom scene. But you have Laurie, she gets thrown off the balcony, and Michael is watching her from up in the balcony, and then he hears Allison coming in, and he kind of gets thrown off guard. He looks away for a second, and then he looks down again where Laurie is, and boom, Laurie disappears. Amazing. I absolutely loved it. I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. I knew right away when he was on that balcony. I was like, because at that moment, there's so many nods in the film sprinkled in that I was like, I know exactly what they're going to do here. And I was right, and I loved it. It was great callback to the original. And the thing I loved was the reversal of the roles. That Laurie really became, in Michael Myers' eyes, she became him. She became Michael Myers. His ghost. His embodiment of nothingness. I loved that scene. That scene is amazing, iconic, and I really love that they threw that nod in there. So those are just a couple nods that I really liked about this film. Now, I said everything I liked about this film. First 18 minutes, 15, 16 minutes of this is literally going to be just talking about things I liked about this film. Now let's get into the negatives. This is going to be a longer review because there's a lot to talk about. But for me, the negatives, they don't outweigh the positives, so that's a good thing, but there are some things that I absolutely did not like in this film. And one of them in particular, let's go with the biggest thing in this film, and you guys know, Dr. Sartain. Oh my gosh, what a miss with this. Dr. Sartain is introduced, and, he's kind of got this new Loomis angle to him, but he's a little different, where he is so invested in Michael. But at the time he's invested in Michael, he is the cause of everything that happens in this film, and that bugs me. So one of the scene I hate the most in this movie, and you guys could probably already guess what it is when he just out of left field, he kills Officer Hawkins. I remember when I watched that in the theater a couple days ago, I remember exactly my expression. This is what it was. I'm watching it and I saw that scene and I was like, what the heck? What the frick was that? What? I was flabbergasted at the fact that they did that. I understand that they were trying to get a new angle at it. They were kind of dangling this whole, oh look, it's New Loomis in our faces, and it's like, ha, just kidding. It's not New Loomis. And the biggest problem I have with that scene is that 2 minutes later, it is instantaneously thrown away. It means nothing. It means nothing. He dies. Michael bashes his head in. And I'm just like, what? What was all that for? What was that build up for? What? The whole purpose of that was just to get Michael to Lori. Made absolutely zero sense on why he would just do that all of a sudden. Just kill Officer Hawkins. And then expect that Michael's not going to kill him. I don't understand what the psychological mindset is at that moment in time. It was literally a twist so out of left field that it didn't elevate the story to any degree. It lessened what was happening to me, because then you're trying to explain to me that Dr. Sartain was the reason why the bus crashed. He's the reason why Michael Myers escaped and why he's been going on this killing spree, because Dr. Sartain wanted to see how he was in the wild? What? Honestly, it made absolutely no sense at all. And even now, it still bugs me, because that is one of the biggest frustrations I have with this film, is why would they do that? I understand that they were trying to take away the whole Dr. Loomis angle, the whole, oh, this is the new Loomis. But it's like, why would you just do something out of left field and leave everyone just stunned? I could not believe what I had been watching. I was like, what is this? And I feel like I might have been the only one in the theater. But me being a big Halloween fan, I felt like it just took a part of everything I liked about the original Halloween and kind of just crumpled it up and stomped on it. Even though that this film it's a sequel 40 years later, and it has tie-ins to the original, it felt like it kind of just took my love for this franchise and just crumpled it up and just stomped on it. And that really bothered me. That scene still bothers me. I guess I have to watch it again, and maybe I'll have a better perspective going in, already knowing what the twist is. But it was just so out there. It was so out there. And I did not like Dr. Sartain's character at all. I felt like, it was forced to have a doctor character in the film. And, again, made no sense. The twist made no sense. It was not effective at all. And it really depleted what this film could have been in the long run. So that was one of the biggest frustrations for me. Another frustration to this film, another big one, and there's some nitpicky things, I don't want to get into those, but another big frustration for me is this film was leading up so much tension, so much suspense. I was on the edge of my seat. I was gripping my seat. I remember I was gripping my seat. I don't do that for a lot of movies. I did that for A Quiet Place earlier this year, and I did it for Halloween. I was gripping my seat. All of a sudden, as tension is building, they cut to a scene with cops talking about their lunch. And that really bothered me. It was funny. I laughed. But then it's like after all of that, the tension has to restart. And it has to start building again. And that's my biggest problem with this film. It didn't just do it once or twice. It did it constantly throughout this film. There was so many times where the tension would just be cut by a joke. Whether it be a joke about, cops, like I said, comparing their lunches, or whether it be a joke with the babysitter and the little kid who I loved. I loved that chemistry between Vicky and the little boy who, for some reason, the name's not crossing my mind right now. But I hated the fact that it literally dropped all suspense. It dropped all suspense. And then, as the film is trying to build up tension again, I just kind of think back to how this film would be better if that last scene hadn't dropped all tension in the first place. If the film kept me tensed. And it didn't do that. And that, to me, is the biggest problem with this film. This movie, I understand you have to have comedic elements in it because, one, David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were making this film. Danny McBride's a huge comedian. I understand it. Whatever. He's got to have jokes. But, and not only that, but you also have to have it for like a new audience. But the problem is you're doing it at the times that are most crucial to the story, most crucial for the level of tensity or the level of tension, sorry. And that really bugged me. It really bugged me because this movie could have been so much more scarier, so much more creepier, but they took away that suspense. They took away that tension with a dumb joke, and it just bothers me. It boggles my mind that they did that. And the whole scene with the cops in the car and the lunch, that scene does not need to be in the movie. There is no reason that should be in the movie. Maybe as a deleted scene, that'd be great to see in the Blu-ray. But I don't understand why it made the final cut. Why that made the final cut. It makes no sense to me. Another scene that I absolutely hated in this film, because we're going off of the cop scene here. I hated the high school dance and all the high school crap. I hated it. The high school element of this film was so weak to me. There's a character in here, Allison's boyfriend, who we never see again. We see him at the dance. He kisses another girl. Allison's upset. He throws her phone in pudding. Okay? And then we never see him again. What was the purpose? What was the purpose? There was no purpose to his character. Except for you have to have a romantical element in this film. And that it bugs me. But all in all, this is a good film. It's very grounded. I think the execution of what they were trying to go for with Michael Myers' character worked. There's some things that I didn't like. I kind of wish that and I understand, you got to make it more fast-paced. You got to have the kills because it doesn't work the same way. But I would have loved to see Michael stalk more. For him to kind of evaluate his prey as opposed to just kind of just going in and doing it. Because that's the thing I love about the first movie so much, is he stalks them. He's studying them. There's that feeling of weight, of patience. And that's just it's gone. And so to me, that's the thing that I wish I could have seen in this movie, but I'm okay with how they correlated it and how they made Michael Myers scary again, so I'm happy about that. But anyway, guys, this is my spoiler review. This is a long review, probably the longest video on my channel, but I feel like I've needed to say some of these things because I've kind of been just sitting on these things for a couple days, thinking about them, pondering about them, and these are my complete thoughts really about this. There are some nitpicky things, and maybe in the future, when I do a revisited review, maybe I'll go back and kind of, when I get a fresh perspective on it, maybe things will change. But so before I end this video, I wanted to talk real quickly about the final scene, or the final, I guess you could say, act in this movie, and that is a lot of it deals with the final battle between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. Beautifully shot. Loved this choreographed fight between them. I thought it was so good, and it was everything I wanted to see. This is literally what I wanted to see in this movie, because that's what the trailers promised us, was that we were going to see this awesome fight between them. And the one thing I want to say about this is the ending to me was satisfying. I did like the ending a lot. I liked the fact that the movie ended the way it did. However, the one thing I didn't like was that if they're retconning all the sequels, why did they have to kill Michael the same way they killed him in Halloween 2? Why? If you retconned all the sequels, why did you do exactly the same thing Halloween 2 did with Michael's character? Which is funny, because if you've seen the movie, and as you see all the flames engulfing downstairs in the basement, there is no Michael Myers. He's not there. His body is not there. So that means they already had a sequel already in the works, in the plan. And so to me, they're going to have some crazy weird way that Michael got out. And so if they retconned all the sequels, why are they just doing the same thing that all the sequels did? I like this film. I'm not saying that, oh, I don't want to see any more Halloween films. But my problem is if you take away all the sequels, you say they're not actual canon. You make this new film, and then you just do everything that the other ones did. It doesn't make sense to me that the way that they did that. But I did like that last battle between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, and I feel like it really suited the movie, and it was just a great final battle that I wanted to see, that I've been promised with the trailers. So yeah, that's my 2 cents about the final scenes of the film and what I think about the fight between Laurie and Michael. To me, though, this is a good movie. You should give Michael some love. Go out and see it again. And I hope you guys had a great time with this movie. Let me know below your full thoughts on Halloween 2018. Guys, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more content. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.